We are live. Mr. Briggs.
From the compound.
From the compound. Doesn't it look a little different tonight?
It looks different.
We look a little further.
We look different, but now what we're gonna have is we'll be able to take the camera and just go in all different directions.
All different directions. How are you, Mr. Briggs? We
I'm
always
good.
do our official.
I'm good.
But tonight we got a special
Special guest, but I also wearing a special watch.
Oh, you are wearing a special watch.
This
You
was
are
his
wearing a
wedding gift
special
to
watch.
his
Oh,
groomsmen.
all right.
There you go.
Oh, wow.
So,
We want to thank
I'm
our
honored.
special guest tonight, author, Mr. Hank Gola.
Yep.
You see our books, to see the books here. By the way, I got one autographed tonight. Thank
Did
you,
you?
Mr. J.
All
Yeah,
right.
I
you're
did.
welcome.
I did.
oh, you want me to autograph it too?
No, I don't want you to autograph it.
Thank you for buying it.
That's
Now
it?
the price.
I actually got it as a present from my in-laws. Gave it to me as my one of my Christmas presents. So great book. We'll get
Talk
into
about
that.
it.
But thank you very much again for coming down tonight. We really
Sure.
appreciate it.
Yes, we missed you at the feast.
We
'cause
missed-
the weather was crazy.
I got chased by the thunderstorms at the Mount
yeah,
Virgin
it was,
Feast.
that
So
was a good time though.
I had to keep the books dry.
It was a fun time.
It was great. So awesome book. We're here. Actually, this is a great segue for tomorrow night, Briggs. We are gonna be previewing the Garfield high school football season. We're
Yes,
gonna
we
have
are.
head coach Pete Santacroce on.
Yep.
So what a better way to, instead of talking about the future,
Segue into it. Start with the past.
we go to the
and
past.
go right to the present.
And what better past of Garfield than the 1939 City of Champions, national champions,
National.
Yep.
Garfield High School team.
Yep.
So
80
Hank,
years. 80 years.
80 years.
39 to 19.
And
So-
is there anyone left from that team?
No, they've all passed away
All passed away.
within the past few years. There were 3 left.
Okay.
Unfortunately, I was able to talk extensively to Walter Young for the book, and he was diagnosed with colon cancer midway through this whole project of mine. But I got a lot of stuff out of him. He was a wonderful guy, and he actually left me his varsity jacket,
Oh,
Nice.
awesome.
which is
awesome.
amazing because my varsity jacket's 40 years old, and this was 80 years old, and mine looks like nothing like this. He
I
kept
still
it in
have
perfect
mine.
condition.
I can't find
You
mine.
can't
I
find
lost
yours?
mine years ago.
I still found
You know
mine. I
what?
have
When
mine.
you move 6 times,
You
Yeah.
can't find
I
it.
can't find nothing.
And
I actually trying to be 7 times.
But
That'll be. I might be back in Garfield. You never
you
know.
never know.
and his 2 Letterman sweaters. So that was great. It's great.
That's
Actually,
awesome.
when I speak to at libraries and stuff, I do bring those in. That's a big hit.
I'll say one thing before we get into the book. The craziest thing is how on YouTube they have footage of the game.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Like you watch the game like you're watching I mean, of course it's black and white video, but
Yeah.
you're actually watching that game.
Yeah.
But there's been stories on TV about I've seen a bunch of stuff on them.
Well, the other thing is not only do they have footage, and if you go to my website, hankola.com, there's footage of the 1939 Garfield Passaic game in color,
Oh, that's
Color.
crazy.
which is and Benny Babula ran for 193 yards that day against Passaic before 11,000 people at Passaic Stadium, and it's an amazing piece of film. If you slow it down, you got to slow it down, but it's just to look at that, you could see the way they went at each other, these teams, and the way they played the game, the single wing, the beauty of the single wing. It's really an amazing piece of film.
We just got a text from Joey Garone. He said he remembers the old beat up football in the high school trophy case.
Yes.
We got the
Yeah.
football. Yep. So
Yeah.
do you remember that?
I'm actually holding that in my picture in the book, in the author picture.
Oh, nice.
That's awesome.
So, yeah, it is beat up though. I don't think you can blow it up. I don't
So
think
let's
you
get
can
let's get to the book. Let's get the story out. Who people who don't know, because I thought I knew about it, and then when
Yeah.
I read the book, it's like the stories from they weren't supposed to be the team to go,
No,
Yeah.
absolutely not.
and it's just so the floor is yours. I think if you want to just start with that, a little background of how they actually got chosen for the game.
Sure. Well, let me go further beyond that, and just tell you about how I actually got interested in the project. I grew up in Garfield. I was born in 1954, and if you were of my generation and your parents were basically of this generation, you grew up knowing about this game. The first thing I knew about sports was that Benny Babula kicked a winning field goal for Garfield to beat Miami in the national championship.
Yes.
Mhm.
That's what I knew before I knew anything else. There we go.
That's the first
And
one.
I think Benny's. I think that's a signal from
That's it,
Benny.
yeah.
No, usually I
I
get
think
yelled
that's
at
what
for
that
that.
is. I think-
He joined us. He's joined
I
us.
think, okay, Benny, we're with you.
All right.
I knew the story from when I was a little kid. I knew it from my father's knee. And 1990, 75 years later, 2014, I was working for the New York Daily News. I was one of the football writers. And I'm coming back from a game in Foxborough. And my mind is still kind of recovering from the mind-numbing Belichick press conference. And for some reason on I-95, it just occurs to me that it's 75 years since Garfield won the national championship. And I ended up asking my editor if I could write a piece on the anniversary, which I did. It was the end zone in the Daily News, which was the big feature. And there we go again, Benny.
Someone else is
There we
looking
go.
now.
Maybe it was Art Argauer there sending me. But anyway, I said that, okay, I think I could turn this thing into a book because it's so much left over. And it really became more than just a book about Garfield or a book about football. It became a kind of, in my view, a book about the greatest generation, the making of the greatest generation, and why these kids who ended up winning World War II took these values from the football field to the battlefield.
Which is what they did back then.
Absolutely.
Exactly. I mean, they were that generation. We talk about it, but they were very selfless. I mean, because the way they grew up, they didn't have much. In Garfield, they were immigrants. Obviously, they were. The Eastern Europeans worked in the textile factories and enforcement in Botany Village.
Yeah.
And same thing in the Heights. In fact, well, I'll digress, but if you're from Garfield, you know that, and if you're of a certain age, you know that the two sections of Garfield are
Italian and Polish.
Pollock Valley and Guinea
Heights. I'm half Italian, half Polish.
Well, there you go.
But you were nowhere near either one of them.
I was
You were close to Passaic.
I was.
I was in the Polish section.
Yes, you were.
You were in the Valley.
Yes.
Yeah, you were definitely in the Valley.
Yes, definitely.
When Michael Kay had me on to talk about the book, and it was simulcast on the Yes Network, and I brought up the fact that Garfield was half Guinea Heights and half Pollock Valley. It was like he almost fell over. So, well, that's the way it was.
Oh, yeah,
But
it is
that
true.
Garfield. That is Garfield in a nutshell.
To a T.
It
Absolutely.
is.
Because you didn't focus on your differences, you focused on your similarities, and you came together. It's exactly what happened on this 1939 team.
Sure.
All these teams, so the Eastern Europeans, the Italians, coming together to win the national championship under Argauer. But if we go back, so I know the story. Now I start to research the book. I dive into microfilm to begin with, and it's like my portal to the past, like my time machine. I go to these different libraries. I put the microfilm in, and I just lose myself in the microfilm, trying to research as much as I can, trying to find every word ever written. Not only about the Garfield team, but of course we even haven't mentioned they beat Miami High School.
Yes.
Yep.
They went down, and the game was played in the Orange Bowl on Christmas night.
The Miami team that
1939.
gave up 13 points all season.
Miami had given up 13 points all year. They were probably the best team in the South. And Garfield went down there and of course and beat them 16-13 on a late field goal by the legendary Benny Babula. It really set, I think it set the tone for every Garfield team after that, because I think whether win or lose, and I played baseball at Garfield, we weren't very good, but if you played at Garfield, you were a tough kid and you gave it 100%. And I think that team kind of set the tone for everything that came afterwards, because it was just a tough team of tough kids,
Right.
Who came together under a really good coach in Art Argauer. To just set the stage for high school football back then, I mean, it was huge. I mean, it's nothing like it is today. In the 30s, high school football was probably as popular as pro football, as the NFL, or college football. Because if you think about it, you're living in Garfield. Do you have a car? Maybe you have a car. Can you get to New York to watch the Giants at the Polo Grounds? Probably not. There's no TV.
Right.
There's
So
no,
Garfield's your team.
There's no
High school.
NFL network. Rutgers
Kurt wouldn't do good.
No. Rutgers was terrible, but that hasn't changed.
Right.
But you followed your local high school football team. And there were Bloomfield was good. It was really good. Bloomfield was one of the dominant teams at the time. Passaic was really good. They had good teams. Nutley was very good. East Orange was very good. There were certain teams that were just above everyone else. And if you happened to be in those communities, that was your team, and you were a diehard fan of the high school.
It's like what Texas has now.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
But I think even crazy. I mean,
well, it's
you
less-
look at something game. I saw like Bloomfield. You said it was the Garfield Bloomfield, 18,000 people. at Foley Field.
90,000
I mean,
Foley Field.
that's crazy.
Yeah.
You know,
And it's
like,
actually more than that if you talk about, because they turned away people. And if anybody knows anything about Foley Field, it's still the same way today.
I played
play
there.
there?
Not
Junior?
No. Not I played in a Sunday league.
in that,
Tackle,
in that.
a tackle after I don't know, it was 99 or whatever, but yeah, I played it there. It's a weird.
But it's got that big hill.
Legit, yeah.
It's got that big hillside. So when they turned people away, 19,000 people, there were maybe 4,000 or 5,000 people that actually ended up on the hillsides.
You know,
Right.
So that game was probably viewed, by 23,000, 24,000 people. It's amazing. There was betting going on in front of the cop, in front of the police. There were odds going on. It was.
Who said there wasn't FanDuel in the
deal.
1930s?
Yeah.
FanDuel. Their own FanDuel.
It
It
was
might
a
have been
huge
a
deal.
guy with a crooked nose, but he was taking the bets.
That's it.
Yeah, and it was such a big thing that everybody was behind it. Well, in 1930, Argour takes over a Garfield team that 2 years earlier, in 1928, was known as the Scoreless Wonders.
Didn't score at all.
They scored maybe in the last game of the year.
Wow.
They finally scored. So the Bergen record midway through the season dubs them the
Yes.
Scoreless Wonders. 2 years later, the kind of Board of Education in Garfield got a little antsy. They wanted a winning football team. And they decided that they were going to bring in a new coach. And Argour got the word from Aldo Greco that they were looking for a coach. Now, Argour was a star at Clifton High School in the 20s. And then he had gone to Tusculum. He went to, but he was a winner. And he said, "What do I have to do?" He says, "Well, just talk to the Board of Education. I'll give you I'll give you a little recommendation." He got the job.
Now, was he a head coach, or was that his first head coach?
He was a head coach at York Junior High School in Pennsylvania.
Okay.
And before that, while he was going to Tusculum, he was the head coach of a girls' basketball team in Tennessee that won the state championship.
Wow. Talking about Jack
So he had that winning background now.
He went to the Savage School of Physical Education, where he actually was a classmate of Lou Gehrig's.
Oh.
It's a lot of stuff going on there.
By the way, not to interrupt, but Sis is commenting. He's saying he went to Bloomfield, so he's saying Bengal for life. 12,000 people at my senior year game against Montclair, beat them for the first time in 25 years.
Butch Fortunato.
So
They would have beaten Butch Fortunato, the Montana coach. There we go, Benny. Okay, we got to get back to talking about Garfield.
that's what he got mad about the Bloomfield.
Well, there's actually a very good chapter and a great picture of Bill Foley, because in 1938, I think that's a little off. Yeah, there we go. In 37, Garfield was they were young. They were kind of on the way up, but Bloomfield won another state champion. They were dominant in the 30s. Bloomfield was a team, and Argour knew that Bloomfield was a team to beat. So in 38, his whole season was
based on beating Bloomfield.
And there's a great picture in the book of Bill Foley sitting in Foley. Look, Foley Field is named after Bill Foley. Well, most people get stadiums named after them after they're dead or they're retired. Well, the Foley Field was named after Bill Foley midway through his high school coaching career.
It's like Coach K Court.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. That's it. You get the court right now.
But they went after everything was basically if you beat Bloomfield,
Right.
that was
You
the
were a team.
championship, and that was the whole philosophy for Argour.
But they weren't supposed to be.
Well, in 38, Bloomfield was down. Argour knew he had a chance.
He could beat it.
In 34, here's the big thing. In 34, they upset Bloomfield in the first game ever played at Foley Field. The grand opening of Foley Field in Bloomfield.
Garfield
beats him in 34 because Argour had started preseason practice in July, and with an eye on this Bloomfield game. Right? In 30, In 30, he wins the Bergen County Championship. The Bergen County Championship was small schools, Dumont, Pagoda, and stuff like that. It was like small potatoes. And Argour, he wanted more than that. So in 34, he sets his sights on beating Bloomfield. Kind of gives him a game, right? And they're like the homecoming. Okay, we're gonna inaugurate the stadium. Garfield's going to be the team. It's going to be a cakewalk, right? Well, Garfield comes in because they start practicing in July.
Well prepared.
Well prepared. Bloomfield had cruised to the state championship the year before, and basically, spent the whole summer, whatever. And Garfield comes in and beats them on opening day.
I like it. I like the mentality of,
and-
you know what? Even though he wanted a winner, he just didn't want to win. He wanted the whole shebang.
Yeah.
He wanted the whole shebang.
Want the whole shebang. Let's go get Bloomfield's the team. Let's go get Bloomfield.
Let's go get 'em.
That's
Nowadays, your whole shebang is the state, and that's it.
I know. Well, you have a little state. They did the little thing last year with the MetLife games, but
No, but I'm saying you can't go
oh no,
during
not,
the season. You could go to California. You could
Right.
Sure.
There's not that
right.
single. Doesn't matter division, group 1, 2, 3.
Right.
It's
Right.
all
Powerhouse.
There was
Right.
one state champion.
Right.
One state champion, which
All
is another
comers.
story in the book. But Argauer knew that to get to a state championship, he had to go to Bloomfield. So he beats him in 34. Now the funny thing is, so he starts practicing in July. So Foley, who's all ticked off about the whole situation, gets the NJSIAA to ban preseason practices, and that's why to this day.
It's
August, right? It's August.
Yep.
You can't start in July.
Right.
That goes back to Garfield beating Bloomfield in
Wow.
1934. So
Yeah.
he
It's a
built
crazy
a team by
statistic.
38. In 38, they're the state champs. They're undefeated season. It's Babula's junior year. They have a kid named Teddy Cheslaw who's a great back. He's got a really good team. They beat Bloomfield for the first time since 34, 18-0. They win the state championship. So in 39, everybody is gunning for Garfield. Right. And
But now in the book, but with you saying that though, Garfield kind of had the Miami team already in mind.
not yet. They had to defend their state championship.
Okay.
And actually, as the season starts, Argauer is putting out like, I don't know, I'm not sure if we're that good, but the whole coach
Right.
speak.
Yeah.
It's coach speak.
But he knew what he had.
He knew what he had. But what happens is through the course of the season, they start winning games from behind. They start these character wins. Now, if you have to realize that back then, there weren't many blowouts unless the talent level was
Extremely
extreme.
one-sided.
Because what happened was, back then, football was, okay, you drove the ball. Nobody kicked the field goal. So you always tried to, you always went for it on fourth down. If you failed to get it on fourth down, you turned the ball over, and the other team
Got to go
again.
70 yards.
Yeah.
So there wasn't a lot of scoring because if you didn't make the fourth down play ended up being the key play of the game, right?
Yep.
So there was a lot of 7-point games. If you beat a team by 10 points, it was a blow. It was considered a blowout. It really was.
And because of the way the offense was, it wasn't these.
It wasn't wide open.
Widespread game.
It
was
4 yards and a cloud of
Right.
dust.
Yeah.
You know?
It was single wing football.
Yep.
And it was run the ball, off tackle sweeps, throw the ball just as a change of pace,
Mhm.
or if you were behind in an emergency,
Then you
had to
have
throw
to,
the
yeah.
ball. Right, but you seldom saw passes, and you never saw field goals. So in 39, as they're going through the course of the year, and they have to come from behind against Irvington, they have to come from behind against Passaic. Passaic scores. All these come from behind wins that build character. Meanwhile, down in Miami High School, which was so good. Think about Florida today and how good Florida and Texas are probably the
Yes.
best
Two top. Yep.
states for high school football in the country.
And
Right.
California's third.
California would be in there as well, and Pennsylvania if you're looking for linemen in the Midwest. But basically you're talking
Texas, Florida.
about Florida being really, that's where everybody comes out of, right? Well, back then Miami was such a good team that they didn't have competition in Florida. They had to go out of the state to regional teams. They played teams from Atlanta. They played teams from Tennessee, South Carolina. That's where they played. They left their conference and they started playing an
Independent schedule.
intersectional schedule. And they were in 1939. They just cruised. It was just blowout after blowout after blowout. They had a kid named their back was Davey Eldridge.
Yep.
That was the star of the Miami team. And I think during 1939 season, he had 9 touchdown runs of 70 yards or more. He was just a breakaway threat. He was a state champ in sprints and 100, 220. He just has speed.
So now they
Nobody
were just
jumps
direct snap to him, like he's or he was like a legit back, or like
he
the single
was,
wing.
Yeah. Well, they played a short punt formation, but it was all direct snap football
Okay,
back then. So yeah, they would just
snap it to
they would
him.
snap it to him or do a spinner play or something. But the object was to get him around the corner and go,
Mhm.
and he would outrun everybody. So they were just dominating everybody in 39. Meanwhile, Garfield was playing all these close games. Boom, 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 boom. Now, toward the end of the season, they had the state. I need a little drink here. If you don't
Okay, there you
mind.
go.
You got a little
Absolutely.
schnapps here.
There you go.
Schnapps.
Anybody?
I know.
By the way, Garfield had 55 taverns in 1930. There was a
Wow.
tavern on
That-
every corner.
That was
So yeah,
55 liquor stores.
yeah.
How about I forgot what I was gonna say here.
You threw him off with schnapps.
You
Well,
did.
They go
I
through the
forgot.
season. They build this character. They're winning games from behind. But late in the year, they start to think about the state championship and winning another one. Now, in 38, 39, there was a system called a Colleton system. State champions were picked by this kind of formula, right? That was based on strength of schedule mostly.
Okay.
I mean, there were only a few teams. There were only a handful of
That's what I'm saying.
big
So
schools,
there
yeah.
had to be an opinion of somebody's
yes, Colleton.
involved.
Right,
Colleton,
right.
J. Whitney Colleton, who was a math professor at Trenton State, came up with this formula to kind of pick state champions. And Argauer used the formula to like set up his schedule so that it would be a tough schedule so that he could get the most points out of beating these teams, right? So by the end of the year, now there's the Colleton point. The Garfield's ahead on Colleton points, but there's also a team from Nutley that's really very good, and a team from East Orange that's really very good, and a team from Vineland in South Jersey,
Fine,
which is
yes.
very good. But the South Jersey teams that were playing were considered
Weaker.
inferior.
Yeah.
right? So they weren't getting a lot of Colleton points based on strength of schedule. Now they really wanted a postseason matchup with Garfield. Vineland really wanted a postseason matchup with Garfield to show what they can do. But as the season is winding down, Garfield sees no reason to play Vineland because they're so far ahead of Colleton. We have nothing to lose.
Right. What's right? Right.
What
What
do you have to
gain?
right. What
Nothing
can
to
you
gain, nothing
right?
to
What can you
gain,
gain?
So, but late in the season, the National Sports Council comes out with an idea. Then this was an outgrowth of the polio Foundation, the Infantile Paralysis Association. The sports writers around the country came up with an idea that they would stage athletic events to fund the polio fund because
Okay.
polio was huge back,
Huge, yeah.
obviously huge, a big scare, and FDR, who was obviously the president at the time, had polio, so they came up with this the idea to stage all these athletic events, and the flagship of that in 1939 that they decided for the first time was going to be a national championship high school football game. It was going to be staged in Miami because where else would you stage it at the time?
Right. That was that was the hot spot.
That was the
yeah.
hot spot. I mean, and Miami was not. On top of that, Miami was hosting a game, an intersectional game every year on Christmas. They would invite a team. So what they did was they asked Miami if they could take that game and turn it into a national championship game with the proceeds going to the Polio Foundation. They agreed. A few complications after that. But Argauer now hears about this, and that Miami is going to be the Southern team. They were obviously the best team in the South. They were going to pick a Northern team to play Miami.
And they had no West team, no.
Well, the North was the North of the Mason-Dixon line. So this encompassed everything out to California.
Because back then, okay.
Right. So they put out publicity that they were interested in teams from as far away as Montana, Billings, Montana, Casper, Wyoming, Sioux City, Iowa, and then Massachusetts, Brockton, Massachusetts. Garfield was included in that.
Brockton, Massachusetts.
Yeah,
That's where Seinfeld had their last episode when they got arrested.
is that correct?
Absolutely.
Well, you know who's from
Not a
Brockton.
Seinfeld
You know who's
guy.
from Brockton, Massachusetts?
No.
You know what their nickname is?
No.
The Boxers. You know
So
who's
was
from
it
Brockton, Massachusetts?
Muhammad Ali? No.
No, go back. You
Joe Louis?
Rocky Marcy.
Rocky
I was gonna say
Rocky Marcy.
I was gonna say.
Brockton Bum.
But yeah,
Uh,
in Massachusetts.
He actually played on the 39 team. Actually, was a freshman in 39, played in 40. But
All right, that's
so they got all
fine.
these. So they put out this publicity that they're going that they're going to choose a team from the north. But all the while, they are dead set on taking a team from New York City because they figure that'll draw the biggest
Right.
crowd.
There, I know you said Garfield wasn't a big ticket, seen as a big
It
ticket
wasn't seen
team.
as a big ticket, but they settled. At first, they were going to take a team from Erasmus Hall, which was in Brooklyn, and then Erasmus Hall ended up getting beat by Boys High, so they turned their focus to a team from Seward Park High School, Lower East Side of Manhattan, Jewish ghetto, very poor kids. They got their uniforms stolen. It was been a great story. They call them the dead end kids because the Bowery
Mhm.
boys. It was going to be a great story. Only problem with that was that the New York State Board of Education had a rule that
Yep.
you cannot play.
Certain amount of games.
Well, you can't play after a certain date, and you can't play more than 100 miles from your hometown.
Really?
So Seward Park, they picked Seward Park anyway. So look, that's right. They'll get around the rule. You know, these
Yep.
kids, it's a big thing for the kids. Blah blah blah. Well, the Board of Education was stubborn, and they came down on it and said, "No, you're not going," because back then, unlike today, rules.
You
were
can't
rules.
say, right, rules mattered.
Right, rules mattered. You didn't get around them. You know, there was no way around it.
Yeah.
So then LaGuardia comes in. Mayor LaGuardia comes in and says, you got to let these kids go. And the Board of Education of New York, Board of Regents, says they're not going. So Governor Lehman comes in. Governor, another famous name, Governor of New York, says, you got to let these kids go. And Frank Graves from the Board of Education says they're not going. So now what do? Well,
Oh, it's late.
now it's late. And
Now, did the Miami side have any voice in who they played? or no?
yeah, they did. Yarborough wanted a good gate himself.
Okay.
So he had Jesse Yarborough was the coach of the Miami high school team, and he had a big influence
Sure,
as
a
it
lot of
turned out
power,
on who was going to be picked. But it's still obviously he was going along with this New York City team. Well, now they run into this dead end. They can't send the New York kids. So now Grantland Rice, the famous Grantland Rice, 4 horsemen of Notre Dame,
Okay.
right? He was the chairman of the National Sports Council. He says, "Okay, we're going to scrap the national championship idea. We're going to send an all-star team for the metropolitan area, right?" Now, Benny Babula is on the team.
Yep. Two Garfield kids.
Johnny
I think it was, right?
Grabowicz is on the team, and Argauer is named as a coach. They start practicing. They have a practice at some tennis center in New York where everybody's just going on at Babula because they can punt the ball 60 yards. Then they have a practice at Baker Field, Columbia's stadium. And the rumor starts going around that the New York Board of Education is going to is not looking on this kindly, and that any kids from New York are in danger of they're jeopardizing their spring eligibility for spring sports, track and field and baseball. Not only that, their diplomas if they play in this game. So the parents start panicking, right? And everything starts hitting the fan at the practice. And Argauer is standing next to somebody from the selection committee, but he's a cagey guy. Argauer, he knows.
How old is he? How old was
Well,
he?
this is 39. He was born in 1900, so he's 39. He was a young
Okay, young,
39
yeah.
years old. And he had already gone to the Board of Education in Garfield and gotten permission for Garfield to go. And the guy standing next to him, he said, "Look, this is ridiculous, and we're bringing all these kids. Hey, it's not going well. I mean, you're bringing all these kids from different systems. It's a mishmash of stuff." He said, "What are we going to do?" He says, "Well, we could go. Garfield can go." He said, "What do you mean? It's going to be another red tape thing?" He says, "No, I've already secured permission." So, boom, they have a meeting that night at the Hotel New Yorker, and Garfield gets the nod. And 2 weeks to prepare. 2 weeks later, they're heading down to Miami on the Vacationer, which was like this, state-of-the-art train. Got down there fast. And here's the thing I always talk about at my presentations. They have this caravan from Garfield. Garfield High School was number 6 school. If you're familiar with Garfield, you know that Garfield, the high school wasn't built yet.
Yep.
It was number 6 school. That's where. So they start at number 6 school, and they have the team buses, and it's a caravan by fire trucks. Just everybody just jumped in on the caravan down to Newark Penn Station. By the time they got to Newark Penn Station, there were 10,000 people that had gathered to send them off. And they're at the station. The governor of New Jersey is there to give them some sort of farewell address and good luck. And he ends up on the wrong platform because of all the people, and he has to kind of yell across to the right platform. But if you can imagine these kids, I mean, there might have been a handful of kids who were out of New Jersey at the time, maybe got to New York City or something.
Yeah.
They're at the station, and up pulls this, state-of-the-art diesel engine, the Vacationer. It must have looked like a spaceship to them. Imagine that, right?
Nuts.
They've never seen anything like this in their.
Some of them didn't know how to have cars.
Exactly.
Right.
They're going down to play a team in Miami, and they have no idea what Miami looks like. There was no TV. How do you know what Miami looks like?
Correct.
It's a tropical place.
Yeah.
They get off. So they.
Now, did the kids know about Miami? Did the kids know how good that team was, or not?
No. They knew that they were a good team and that they were well trained. And
I'm sure whatever press clippings they got a hold of.
But there were no press clippings until they got named for the game.
Right.
And then there was some that came out, but they didn't know.
No.
Right.
It wasn't like they were going down there in awe of Miami. They were going down there to play football.
Right,
They were just another team. But by the time they got down there, they end up at the station in Miami. And again, they come off the platform in Miami, and they're looking at this totally foreign landscape. I mean, they had never even seen a palm tree before.
I was just about to say that.
Right? Imagine this. This is what, it's not.
Because, if you look at Garfield, that hasn't changed much.
No, it hasn't changed much. It hasn't.
So it's a huge difference. I know the first time I went to Florida, I was like, whoa. And this is now.
Yeah, and that
And
was
it's
then.
December.
Because you get
Right.
the feel.
December,
You're going
Florida.
from ice cold
Right.
to heat.
Well, they went back. They played a couple of scrimmages to get back, and it was
Yeah.
ice cold. It was. Wally Tabaka actually hurt his knee and ended up not playing in the game. But down there, they're greeted by Miami High co-eds, like Babula has a co-ed,
Mhm.
Woods has a co-ed, and they're put in this caravan, and they're taken in cars from the train station to their hotel, the Hotel Alcazar. So they're treated like they were like a Super Bowl team arriving, basically.
Can you imagine
It's
that?
amazing.
17,
about
18
that?
years old.
Yeah, but it's not that. It's the 30s. So you're going from here to there.
You can't even imagine it.
No, it's something. I bet you that gave them such motivation. Just treated that way. But,
Yeah.
because
Well, they get to the hotel too, and like they've never seen an elevator before. So what do kids do when they're on elevators? They push their buttons,
does that.
right?
I do. I don't know. I'm scared. Not by myself. Only if someone's with me.
No, that's it.
They
No
get
way.
in their rooms. There's a telephone. How many of them had telephones? So they're all in switchboard. Actually, Argour had to tell them that every time they pick up the phone, they're going to be charged a nickel. Because they had tied up the switchboard because they're trying to call each other's rooms. So they got all scared about that. Now they're down there in tropical heat. Now, let me go back. So Argour, who is, as I said, he's a guy who doesn't miss any trick. He calls up Charlie Barnett, who was the coach at Pompton Lakes, which had played in Florida a year before in Clearwater. And he says, Charlie, what should I know? He says, don't drink the water. This is a very cool story. I think you know this one.
Fascinating. Fascinating.
Don't
Listen
drink
to
the
it.
water.
Fascinating.
You'll get sick. You'll get sick if you drink the water. We all got sick because the water down there is just not very good. Well, if you're from Garfield, you know that Garfield had is famous for its artesian well water.
Okay.
You know the waterworks in East Paterson or Elmwood Park? That's artesian well water. It sounds like something really great. So he says, well, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to bring this artesian well water down to Miami with us. So John Gabriel, who was the boy mayor of Garfield, he's a 29-year-old mayor of Garfield, his parents had a dairy farm. So he had all these big milk containers, these 40-gallon milk. So they filled up, I don't know how many of these 40-gallon milk containers, and they put them on the train with artesian well water, and they put them on the train and brought them down to Miami. And that was what the kids were supposed to drink. Except
they don't listen.
Well, no, they didn't listen. No. It's even better than that. The trainer they get assigned a trainer from the University of Miami to be their trainer for the week.
Wow.
The Hurricanes. And Argauer says, well, how are we supposed to deal with this heat? He says, here, well, what we do is we don't drink the water. You just take a little, you put it in your mouth, you spit it out.
Sure.
We give each player 2 salt tablets every day, and that's before practice, and that's supposed to take care of the salt tablets. So they brought down all this artesian well water, and they never drank it. They spit it out. But during the game, which was played in like 75 degrees, which doesn't sound like a lot, but it is when you're
Right.
down.
Sure.
Yep.
Benny Babula lost 12 pounds. And if you look at that,
I should go down.
You should go down there, Briggsy.
Yeah.
You should go down
Salt,
there. There you go.
salt,
There's your
salt.
answer.
That's my answer.
I think that's it.
I've been doing pretty good.
The salt pill diet. That's we found something here.
Wow.
But they were wearing these heavy wool uniforms, and if you go back on the footage of the game that's on YouTube, you will see that at a certain point, at a certain timeout, they pushed this wagon on the field. Now the wagon was a gift of one of the Garfield fire departments. It was a water wagon. It had these spigots. So that they didn't need a water boy. They could just take eight kids could spray at a time. So but what you'll see on the film, if you look at it carefully, is that none of them drink the water. They just drink it and spit it out. Amazing. Amazing that they won the game.
Yeah, wow.
But they do win the game. They win it because Miami turned the ball over 5 times. Garfield didn't turn over once.
But Garfield, my favorite part of the story is how, and I'm going to get into a little, how I love him doing my offense, a little trickery and stuff like that, being offensive coordinator.
The naked reverse.
The naked reverse
The
in
naked
there,
reverse.
where he said to him, they're going to just keep, because what is it, the single wing, it's like a power
The
play.
single wing's a
Right,
power.
it's a power
It's a
play.
power thing, and you're running Babula. You're running Babula off tackle. Yeah, basically,
Right.
their pet play was Babula off tackle. Just pound
Yep.
it with the blocking. It's for if you're out there, you've never seen a single wing. It's kind of
It's actually
think of the
Tebow,
pack- well,
Tebow, right?
with
With
that,
Florida,
but it's
kind
al-
of.
But it's also the pack. It's also the Packers power sweep.
That's
Yeah.
what I was gonna say.
With instead of linemen, you're using backs.
Yeah.
Basically, but the theory is the same. You just get them out there and blow people away,
Yep.
and precision blocking and everything else. Well, they were doing this all the time, and Miami, of course, was
Biting
slanting
hard.
their
Yeah,
defense and biting
going hard. Yep.
So they get off to a 7-0 lead. Babula actually scores on the first possession of the game. Garfield has an interception on the first possession of Miami's first possession, and on which Miami's best passer is knocked out of the game. Their best passer was a guy named Jason Cozy. He was hurt on the first series, so he's out of the game, which actually worked to their advantage. So Garfield comes down. Babula scores on a power sweep or off tackle slant, and it's the first time. It's the first time Miami has allowed a rushing touchdown all year. They gave up 13 points all year. So now, oh wow, this must.
That's a reality check
And,
right
and
there.
again, the game was built as the powerful Babula against the fast Eldridge.
Yeah.
That's
The
what I was
two
gonna
bars.
add. Yeah, that.
And it was built across the country, by the way. The publicity was across the country on this game. AP and all these wire services were building up the game.
Now, did you get any info, like, what was Miami's thoughts on that game? Did they think we're going to walk through Garfield? Did they respect Garfield?
I think they respected Garfield when they met them at the train station. And I talked to Harvey Comfort, who was one of the players on the Miami team, and he said he was at the train station and he shook hands with Benny Babula, and Babula crushed his hand. And he went back to his team and said, "We're going to have to deal with this."
Yeah.
Kid. Right? They knew they were big. They knew they were tough. So they knew they had something to deal with. But at the same time, they thought that they would be able to spring Eldridge on some big plays because they had all year.
Right. Here's a
And that
crazy
they were
question.
faster.
Who would you consider or compare? I know, hard comparison. Babula to, like, an NFL player in the past, like as a running back trying to tackle. Was he a bigger back?
He was
or?
a bigger guy, but he kind of had everything. If you go look at that 39 film against Passaic, you'll see that he had a great balance. He had very good vision. The only thing he didn't have was speed. But
But
he had,
back then there wasn't. You didn't need speed.
He was just going
This
to you
area.
4 yards, right? That's what you want,
But
4
also,
or 5
he
yards.
would run over people.
Right.
He had very good balance. There's one play in the Passaic game where the blocking is great. He takes off around the end. He cuts. He does a little cut back. So he was able. He had good vision. He could cut back. He stayed on his feet really well. You could see, and he kept his feet moving all the time. He gives a kid a stiff arm. Again, he bounces off a kid. He's almost going down. He touches the ground he keeps his balance, keeps going, boom, 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 and 4 guys have to take him down at the end. That's kind of a back out. You had to gang tackle him. He was that kind of back. He didn't have great speed, but he was going to run over you, or he had some really good vision that he could run around. So he saw the holes very well, and the blocking was always very good for him. So he could always follow his blocking. But so let's go back to the naked reverse that you're talking about. So 7-0, but at halftime, they knew. In fact, Argauer told them, "Look, if you don't pick it up, we're going to get beat," because only turnovers were keeping Miami from scoring. They were outgaining Garfield, but Garfield kept coming up with receptions. And Argauer said he warned him, you're gonna have to pick up he said you got to pick up your skirts. I think that's what Cole said. Have to pick up your skirts. So they come out in the third quarter, and again, Babula is running the ball, power off tackle, and it's the time to run their pet play, which was the naked reverse. And of course, you know what a naked reverse is.
Yep.
It's run without interference, right?
Yep.
Which is why it's called naked. So Walter Young, who was still alive when I started researching the book and was one of the nicest guys I've ever met, just a fantastic human being, was the left end. And Walter Young's job was he had the key block. Everybody was accounted for except for Davey Eldridge, the fastest kid on the team, because they play both ways. So he's playing safety. He's a deep safety. So Young has to pick off Eldridge. That's the last block. And he does that. The entire Miami team is faked out. The handoff occurs at the line of scrimmage. That's where Babula gets the line of scrimmage. Boom, here. You can see it on the film too.
Okay.
And it comes around, right? So Young has to pick off Eldridge, which he does. But my first chapter in the book is about he thinks that he clipped him. He says he was too fast for me. I think I made an illegal block. And he's looking around in the game.
Looking for a flag?
Looking for a flag. And there's no flag. They score the touchdown, go up 13-0. But 75 years later, at the homecoming game at Garfield, when I met him, he says, it really is bothering me to this day that I might have gotten away with something and we won the game unfairly. Now think about that.
Right. No one's saying that today.
No, today
Nobody's saying
Saints,
that.
I will take you back to Saints Rams NFC Championship game.
Forget
You
about
think
it.
he lost any sleep that
Not
night?
at all.
Not at all. He's
Not
going
at
through
all.
Well, Walter Young, 75 years later, is still. I said, Walter.
That's amazing.
I said, Walter, this game's on tape. We could go back and look at it and see if it was a good block. So the day after Thanksgiving, 2014, I think it was, I went up to his place. He was living in Walbrook, and I got it. Laptops out. We're going over the game. It's coming up. Yes, here it is. Boom, and you could see it's not exactly clear. It's not a close-up, but you could see hits him straight on. Good block.
No clip.
Conscience cleared.
That's it.
75 years. It was fantastic.
That's awesome.
Oh my God.
All my career as a sports writer, it was one of the greatest moments of my life.
That is
Not to
Yeah.
interrupt you, but John is asking best place to view it. Is it the YouTube? That game?
Yeah, you go to YouTube.
That YouTube.
Or actually, it's up on my website, too.
Okay, it's on your
If
website?
you go to hankgola.com, you could see that game plus the 1939 Passaic game.
Okay.
But it'll take you to YouTube in the end. But it's a fantastic story. So 13-0, but at that point, Miami starts. It's hot. Miami starts taking over the game. They end up tying the game at 13-13, and then
They had to be pretty down when they got it to 13-13.
yeah, and also Miami's is trying to use every psychological ploy in the
Advantage they
book,
have.
and they're talking about how hot it is and everything else, and this is what they did.
How many people at that game?
Well, unfortunately, there were only 13,000 people there because of the late. They screwed up with the whole picking a team,
Okay.
so they
So
were
we
late in
couldn't get-
promoting the game.
We couldn't be down there if they wanted to travel because it was so 2 weeks.
Well, there were about 500 Garfield people at the game.
We have a viewer, Jim, I don't know how to say the last name, Chisuzi, saying that Argauer later coached at Kearney and had a guy named
Yeah,
Alec Webster.
Alex
Art and
Webster.
I worked together for Tuscaloosa admissions office, calling on high schools in hopes of recruiting some of their students.
Yep.
So it's awesome.
Yeah, he left. Argauer left in '46 for Kearney, and he did. He turned around a Kearney program that it was losers to, and
Well,
Alex Webster was.
John's actually saying, get me a book signed. He wants to buy the book.
Oh,
John Beelan.
fantastic.
Sounds good, dude.
John wants to buy a book.
Fantastic. Amazon. Go to Amazon.
He left Garfield to go to Carney.
Yeah.
Was there any issue why he would leave Garfield after the success?
Well, actually, the funny part of the thing about it was he had twice before left Garfield, but was brought back before he signed contracts. In '37, he left to go to Lyndhurst. They gave him a better offer, and Garfield's Board of Education at the last minute came in and matched the offer. He stayed at Garfield. And then after the '39 season, after the championship game in 1940,
I just think it's fascinating that
Clippers-
back then they have
years.
that kind of deals.
oh yeah,
You know, like
Well,
you
some-
just like
it's work.
some of the coaches would actually get part of the gate as part of their salary. They would get part of the gate.
So what happened in 40?
So in '40, Clifford Scott comes after him. Clifford Scott had just started a new high school in East Orange, and they signed him to a contract. And again, Garfield, at the last minute, he had actually signed the contract. Garfield came after him and said, okay, we'll meet your terms.
I mean, which they should have after.
Yeah, of course they should have. And then he basically had to back out. But Clifford Scott let him out of his contract. But in '46, the third time he did it,
that was it.
they said, go ahead.
Yeah.
Wow.
And that was it. Now, he did come back in the '50s and coach again at Garfield in the late '50s.
Okay.
And resumed his career after the high school was built.
So where's he talked about when you say, and again, it's different decades and stuff, but where's the best coaches in high school New Jersey history?
He has one of the best records in New Jersey high school history, but he's probably forgotten as most of the
because
older guys are.
because of when he did it.
But if you looked at what he did, and that he turned around two programs at Garfield and Kearney and just built them into program.
You know, he works in Carney.
I do.
Yeah, I do know that.
I work
I
in
do
Kearney.
know that. I wonder how many people in Kearney know the name Argour. That's
You got to find that
that's
out.
a good question.
That is a good question.
But I think back then, if you're looking at the best coaches of that era, you would have to look at Bill Foley from Bloomfield, Art Argour from Garfield and Kearney, and probably Ray Pickett from Passaic, Nello DeLolio from Vineland, and George Stanford from Nutley, who died in World War II.
Those are
Those were probably
names.
the guys that I would look to.
By the way, Mayor Riggs just commented, great book. Recommend to anyone you need to be, anyone from Garfield. It's the appreciation the way life was back then.
Yeah,
Mayor Riggs.
if you're from Garfield, you'll appreciate it because
Yep.
you'll recognize it. The bones of that Garfield are still in Garfield today, and I think the people still are. The spirit of the people are still the same.
Oh,
so
absolutely.
So 13-13.
13-13.
It's 13-13.
they come back, they tie it. They actually missed the extra point.
Now so they
Yeah.
kicked those extra points,
They either ran for him or kicked them.
and it was
It's-
1 point either
It was
way.
1 point either way.
Okay.
Oh, so you had your choice. It wasn't like a
Okay.
2-point conversion.
Right,
You're
that's
going
why I
for-
wanted to
Okay.
know. I was going to ask before we got into this.
Right.
So they kicked one, both teams.
Right.
Missed one.
And
Missed
the game is tied on a 70-yard run by Eldridge. He finally gets loose and he gets up there and they score.
So they have all the momentum.
They have all the momentum. The crowd is going crazy. Miami fans that back then they brought cowbells to the game. So you can imagine all
Which
these
State
makes no
cowbells.
Bulldogs.
sense now, but yeah.
You can imagine all these cowbells.
Yeah.
Just imagine the sound of 10,000 cowbells going
Yeah.
off. So the
Nebraska.
place is going nuts. And Garfield would probably have just quit at that point because it was hot. They were wearing wool jerseys again. They had
What were Miami's jerseys?
they were lightweight silk
Oh, they were different. Okay.
because they always played.
That's
in
what they
heat.
did,
were
yeah.
used to the heat.
Yeah. So they didn't.
Well,
Garfield didn't adjust.
Garfield,
Jersey
Miami
wise.
changed jerseys at halftime actually, and I think what they changed they played in white jerseys in the first half and blue jerseys. Their colors were blue and gold,
Okay.
navy blue and old gold.
Wow.
Now apparently Argour had ordered silk jerseys, purple silk jerseys, to be sent down there. I never got to the bottom of it, but people swear that they were in the locker room. And Argour, because he was superstitious, because they won all these games in these yellow, gold wool jerseys, did not switch to the purple silk
Wow.
jerseys. Or the other theory is that Miami switched to dark so to keep Garfield from switching
To dark.
dark.
So yeah.
Ah, gotcha.
So
sense.
was there gamesmanship being played?
Yeah, well, I
don't
also
know.
read in the book where they asked for what was it, a yellow football or colored
before
football?
the
and he
game,
didn't
Garfield wanted, Argyle wanted to use white football.
A white
they
fo-
said
okay, yeah,
no, because it would say,
practice at night.
Yeah,
You
there
didn't
was
let
no-
him at first.
They didn't allow them on the field in the Orange Bowl. They had to go. And Argyle took the team down to Fort Lauderdale to practice at night because
Yeah,
they only played one night game all year.
yeah.
Miami played all its games
Yeah.
at night.
Oh wow.
So I mean that's another advantage. I mean they didn't play much night ball.
1939 having nights, games and lights. There's still teams that don't have lights in high
Chicago
schools.
just said baseball not too long ago.
I know.
Miami High School outdrew the University of Miami
That's
at the Orange Bowl. They
that's
both
crazy.
share the Orange Bowl. So it's 13-13. So Garfield's kind of there. They could have been down, but
They're real.
again, I'm going to say, during the season they were so accustomed to being down and coming from behind. Like
that's where that
especially
helped. That's where
so
that.
now, and Miami is not used to being in close
No,
games.
they're used to
being
blowing
blowout.
teams out. Yep.
Yep.
Right? So Garfield comes back. They put this drive together behind Babula. And I should have mentioned that Johnny Grembowitz was the other star of the game because he was the guy who was kind of spying on Eldridge. He was making all the tackle. He was such a key player who was a lineman who was brought back as
To the
a
back.
lineman
Yeah. Yep.
for this game. So, but Babula again pounding. They get down, and again, 4th down. So everybody, as I said before, 4th down, you went for it. I think it was 4th and 4, right? They get in a huddle, and Babula, and this is according to Walter Young, Babula says, we're going to kick a field goal. Babula,
He calls the shots.
Was it a
right?
drop kick?
no, it wasn't.
Okay.
Babula had never kicked a field goal in his entire high school career. And now,
He wants-
with the national championship
On the line.
he
Yep.
says, we're kicking a field goal. And everybody, okay, well, he's the boss. He's kicking a field
So
goal.
the coach just goes along with him.
The coach you were penalized if the coach had any input. You could
Really?
not communicate. The
Really?
game was the player's game. If somebody sent, if a
No signals or anything.
no. If the coach sent in a player, and he said if the player came out, there could be no communication. It was a flag.
Wow. So the substitute is just wide receiver,
Right,
wide
right.
receiver.
That's
it.
No comment.
Wow.
I didn't know that.
No.
That is
Yeah.
amazing.
So there was no communication from the sideline.
So pretty much Babula called.
he calls the game. He called a naked reverse. I mean, obviously they talked about it before
Right,
the game
sure.
going in. What we're going to
But
try to do
he's
is
calling when he
but
wants.
he's calling the game. It was
Wow.
called from the field. They wanted the players to have control of the game, not the coaches. Now think about that.
No, you
crazy.
can't do it. You can't do it now. You give the kid the play, you can't call it. When you're giving it to him,
Forget it.
they're running
He
the
can't
show.
read it on his sleeve.
Right off a
Forget
wristband.
There's no wristbands back then.
Right.
Wow.
Wow.
So he calls field goal, right? So everybody
And he's
look at him.
kicking it.
He's going to kick it. Yeah, he's going to kick it he's going to try the first field goal of his entire high school career.
Never
And how
practiced
far
nothing.
was it?
It was a 22. It was a 22-yarder, but it was actually a 32-yarder
because of the 10.
because of the 10. They
Yes.
didn't count the 10 in the official
Official score.
scoring. So it was actually
It was a 32.
It's no gimme field goal.
Oh.
It was from the 22-yard line. So
Right,
it was
so
a
it's
32-yard.
32-yard.
So up in the press box, they come out in a field goal formation.
How much time is left, would you say?
A little over 2 minutes.
Okay.
So up in the press box, they're saying it's got to be a fake. It's got to be a fake. They're all
Sure.
and he blesses. He does a sign of the cross. The snap is there. Now, Grembowitz is the holder. This is why I mentioned Grembowitz. Grembowitz was not the usual holder on
Extra points?
On extra points. John Orlovsky was the holder, but John Orlovsky got hurt before halftime. So not only was Grembowitz thrown into his unusual position of being a regular
Backfield player.
lineman and now being a backfield guy in a backfield, but now
Right.
he has to hold for the game-winning field goal in the national championship. And
Now, before you go any further,
yes,
could there have been a tie?
yeah, if it was a tie, there was no play. There was no.
No
Tie
way.
was a tie.
Tie was-
There's no overtime.
Okay, thank you.
Tie was done.
That was my
So
question.
it would have ended in a tie. But so anyway, if you go back and you look at it, you'll see the field goal. It was a line drive. It was no thing of beauty, right?
Sure.
Just get over.
But it
Just
got
get
over. It did the job, and it was just got over the crossbar. And the legend, if you grew up in Garfield, in my age at least, was that back in Garfield, where they were listening to the game by Western Union in the school number 8 gym, where they had shoehorned
Like a wire.
2,300 people into school number gym, and they were all in the hallways. when Babula kicks a winning field goal and you read it over the wire, it's good. The legend was that everybody started jumping up and down and created a crack in the foundation.
Wow.
This is what Coach Hollis told us when he went.
Yeah.
I had Coach Hollis. He was an assistant on that team. So this was. I went back to number 8 school. I couldn't find the crack. I found some cracked paint. That was all I could find. Yeah. So, but anyway, he kicks the field goal. Boom. Now
this is Christmas night too,
this
isn't
is
it?
Christmas night.
Christmas night.
And it was like 20 degrees. They had to actually back in number 8 school. They had to close the. They had to close the doors because they were overflow crowd wanted to get in. And actually, people started breaking down the doors. I think one of the doors was actually broken down. They had to keep them out.
But there's still 2 minutes left.
There's still exactly that's what I was getting with. So Miami has its last chance. They still can
They got
come
speed.
back. They got speed.
Yeah.
You know, they got Eldridge.
Guy that could just break.
Yeah.
And
you know.
they've got 2 minutes.
Yeah. Okay. Go.
Now there is a guy named Al Kazarin. Al Kazarin came in late in the half when Orlovsky got hurt, the same guy who was holding, and he has to play he's one of the defensive backs, right?
Okay.
So he's back there. Not a starter, but a pretty good player. He is actually he was also a good baseball player, so it wasn't like he was,
He was athletic.
Yeah, he was athletic. He's back there. Miami's driving. They're moving. Yeah, and everybody's anticipating that they're going to
Score to win the game.
Score. So on a certain play, Eldridge is back there, throws a pass up for grabs, and Kazarin makes the interception. And then there's like a couple of minutes, a couple of plays.
It says
left.
Babula ends it with like 5 guys tackling him to get the last
But
first
what
down.
happens is there's nobody. They didn't take a knee back then. There was no
You
knee.
still run the
you
play.
still ran the ball.
Yeah.
You still ran the play. So the last play up is Babula carrying guys, like a signature Babula run where they're all over him
And they can't get him.
and they can't. He's down.
Game
Game's
over.
over. No primal shrieks. Nobody's dancing, doing any choreography or anything like that. The game is over, and you can see it on the film.
Yep.
They shake hands. They go back to the locker room. They're all spent. They're sitting at their lockers. Garfield.
Well, I will say this is something that he would love. This would be him back then.
Yeah.
I see one of the guys. Well, I'm not saying getting interviewed, but they show a player kisses one girl, kisses another girl, kisses another girl. He's kissing everybody.
Yeah,
So it doesn't matter who's who.
Hey,
Everything
what
you.
are you talking about?
Yeah, that was a little added little thing at the end of the.
Yeah, that was like, look at this. Hey, you're national champs.
Yeah. But anyway, they stayed for a week. They won the national championship. They stayed for a week.
I got one more question on the game, though.
Yeah.
Did it ever get asked to the coach, what'd you think of, like, Babula going for the field goal or going for it?
No, I couldn't find anything like that. I wish I could do. If he was alive, that's what question I would have asked.
Hey, you know what? It worked. Whatever it did,
It worked.
It worked.
It was what it was, right?
I mean, he could be on the sideline. What's going on? Field goal? We're kicking a field goal.
He could be like, what are you
Field goal.
Yeah.
That's an interesting thing of like what the thought of there was.
Well, here's the thing about the field goal. Not only was it Babula's first field goal of his career, but it was the first field goal kicked in the Orange Bowl since the previous year's Orange Bowl by University of Tennessee.
College.
By college. Yeah, I mean, they're playing college games. I mean, the University of Miami, you're playing there all year against big-time teams.
And
Georgia, Florida.
Yeah.
Nobody's kicking field goals. It was the first successful field goal
Amazing.
made in a year. So pretty credible stuff.
How good was he?
He was amazing. He was. I sent the tape to Ernie Accorsi, who was the Giants general manager
Yeah.
when I covered the Giants, and I said, just give me a scouting report on this guy, and he just came back. He said, phenomenal, just balance, combination of balance and power, and just amazing high school.
And where did he play
player.
defense?
He was a kind of a linebacker spot. Yeah.
But those guys both ways,
Both
pretty
ways,
much.
60 minutes.
And he went to what college?
Well, here's what happened. He was recruited by everybody. Tennessee wanted him, Notre Dame wanted him, and he ended up going to Fordham, which was a big-time program back then.
Oh, was it? Okay.
They were number 6 in the nation.
Wow. And it was
at the
close
time.
to home.
And he blew out both knees as a freshman. Now, freshmen didn't play varsity back then.
They played freshman.
They played freshman team. And
Yeah.
he blew out both knees as a freshman. And he played varsity, but he was then unable to kind of reach his potential at the time. Eldridge, the Miami kid, went to Georgia Tech, where he was a pretty good player behind Clint Castleberry, who was an outstanding player. And then after the war, came back and played a little for Miami. But
See, that that era.
Yeah,
The
that's,
war cut short everybody's
Yeah.
career. Yeah.
That was the issue.
and then they had a bonfire when they came back.
Well,
20,000
here's
people.
what happens. Yeah, so they spend the week in Florida, and they do some cool things. And Argour takes them on like the Seminole Reservation and stuff like that. Also, there was one unauthorized trip to a bordello, which I didn't put in the book. So this is
Yeah, put
This
it
is
in
new.
the book.
This is
This is
new.
breaking
It's
news?
breaking news right here.
Breaking news?
You only hear it on the show.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Wow.
And the next day, now Walter Young was a very religious kid. In fact, his mother didn't even want him to go down there because he was playing on Christmas Day.
Oh wow.
Right, and the brothers talked her into letting him go. So very religious, very straight kid. He said he didn't have a first sip of beer until he was in college. He told me, and he didn't tell me this, but his son told me this. Because Walter begged me not to put the bordello story in the book. I honored his wish.
That's it.
Right, but we'll talk about it here.
That's
And,
awesome.
and his son tells me that the next day, when Argour catches wind of this, right, and the next day he puts the whole team in front of him. He says, "Is it all right? Show me your wallets." He says, "Walter, you don't have to show me yours. I trust you."
It's like what do you call it? When they went to what was the movie? They went to the Go-Go bar before the game.
Not the Titans.
No, with oh God, the guy from Dawson's Creek and
Oh, Varsity Blues.
Varsity Blues.
Varsity Blues. Varsity
The
Blues.
teacher was the dancer.
Yeah, Varsity
They knew what
Blues.
they were doing.
Well, yeah. So, but then they spend a week there. They come back on January 4th.
Newman.
Yeah,
Yeah.
in a way,
Yeah.
except for Walter. And they are greeted at Newark Penn Station. There's all sorts of pictures that were taken there. Benny's girlfriend is there to give him a big smooch. Benny's girlfriend is still alive, actually. I interviewed for the book.
Get outta
She
here.
was actually up at my book party.
Wow.
Violet. Yeah.
Get out of here.
It's totally great. And again, they took a caravan down into Garfield. They go up into the heights, up Harrison Avenue,
Mhm.
down Portable Avenue, go down through Pollock Valley, Lands Avenue, back up Palisades Avenue to the number 6 school. And that night, they have a bonfire at what is the present site of the high school. It was called the Casino Grounds.
Okay.
Okay.
It had been part of the Garfield Worsted Company. And City Hall was actually one of the woolen company buildings. So they're at the casino grounds where the Brickyard is. You know about the Brickyard. It used to be where the tennis courts are. There used to be a big
Pond.
pond.
Okay.
It's called the Brickyard.
Yeah.
Also, so
See, Kurt didn't know that.
I didn't know it.
I knew
I didn't
that.
know. You're on top of that.
I
I
know
did not know that.
so that night, the DPW in Garfield collects all the old Christmas trees in town and lights them up in a bonfire. And the bonfire reaches about 200 feet in the air.
Wow.
And there are 20,000 people at this celebration.
20,000.
I grew up 2 blocks away. I can't picture 20.
No, me either. Me either.
Imagine that. And
Oh,
and the president of the Board of Education, I think it was William Whitehead, said this is the greatest day in Garfield history, and I don't think it will be replicated. And I think he is right.
Absolutely.
It has-
How can you?
How can you? Do
How
that?
can you? There's nothing else you can do.
The sense of pride that day, there's no possible way to get that back.
No.
No.
That's,
You're still prideful for your community.
of course,
But
but there's
that day-
no sporting event on that high school level that can do
Forget
that
that.
can beat.
Yeah.
It's impossible.
The country's too big now for that.
Yeah.
You can't get that sense of community on one event anymore.
Yeah,
Can't do
it brought everyone together.
Can't
It's
do it.
just an amazing. So it's an amazing story. And then, of course, all of these guys went into World War II in both
Yeah.
teams, Miami and
Yeah.
Garfield. And Johnny Grembowitz, a very sad story with John Grembowitz. He goes to William and Mary and he plays college football there. And William and Mary goes down and beats Oklahoma and upsets them. He's a pretty good player. But again, at the end of his career, he's going to go into the Air Force, the Army Air Corps. He wanted to become a fighter pilot, as so many did. And he goes through training, and it's before D-Day in 1944, so they're just need all these fighter pilots, and they're sending these kids up on basically literal crash courses, right?
Yeah.
So he's in Kansas. He's training as an air cadet, and they're doing these landing maneuvers, landing practice, and the guy in front of him comes in, and he's coming in too fast, so the tower tells him to abort his landing and to turn around and do it again. So he comes in, he turns around, and Grembowitz is the next guy coming in. And as he turns around, he doesn't clear his line of vision, and he just cuts Grembowitz's plane in half. And Grembowitz is killed instantly. And it's a shame. I mean, but the thing about Johnny Grembowitz is that Walter told me that he was such an intelligent kid, and he would have been like. There's so many tragedies in World War II. The guys that were lost in World War II, but he would have been such a tremendous guy, a tremendous human being. He would have had such a tremendous life. He had been cut short at that point. The body was brought back to Garfield, and the funeral was at St. Stan's Church, and they had a case on basically, and they took the funeral cortege went up Lands Avenue, and people came out on their front steps as it passed along the way to pay tribute, just as they had when the Garfield team came back from Miami. Everybody had come out and was clapping and everything else. Only this time it was much more somber. Garfield High School, the kids were led out and they lined Palisade Avenue as the funeral went past the high school. And instead of going right over the river and into Newark, it took the left onto Passaic Street and went to St. Nicholas Cemetery, and there he was laid to rest. And the grave is there, and I have a picture of it in the book, and his mother gave him his wings. It says Cadet John Grembowitz, and the wings are there. Again, Air Cadet John Grembowitz.
Yeah.
It's a very sad story, and probably as jubilant as that night was,
sad. It's just as sad with that
Somber
story.
as
somber, and probably as sad a day as there was in Garfield ever.
How much fun was it doing the book?
Well, I love the research. I mean, I didn't know what I was getting into. I knew the story. Obviously, I grew up with the story, but as I was just doing the research and following it, it was cool because the one great thing about newspapers back then is that they were very descriptive because there was no TV. There was radio, but there was not TV. So if you were a newspaper writer, you really had to tell a story. It wasn't as it is today. You really had to describe what was going on so that people could understand what's going on because they hadn't seen the game.
And you had a lot of leeway to do that.
Yeah, you had a lot of leeway. You could also give your opinion. I mean, these writers were ripping players. I quote a lot of guys, and they were always they weren't kind to these high schools.
Yeah.
It's like they weren't holding anything back. But I was able to go day by day reading newspaper accounts, and again, it wasn't just the Herald News; it was the Bergen Record, it was the Newark Evening News, the Star Ledger. They had a lot of newspapers that were covering them, and because they were such a good team, they did get a lot of coverage. So day to day, as I said, it was almost like a time machine. I read the next day's paper, the next day's paper. It was almost as if I was experiencing an entire season of modern football. Because you would want, what's
going next?
What's
going to happen next? Yeah.
And it was really cool. And I knew how it would end up. I knew how the story ended up, but I didn't know how it happened. And some of the stuff along the way that I discovered.
Yeah. No, that's awesome.
And I basically uncovered, the way I look at it is I kind of uncovered buried treasure that would have remained.
Yeah, because growing up in the town, they gave you the synopsis. 39 champs.
Yeah.
Right. Field goal with 6. Yeah.
Not the deep
story behind it.
Of wow, there was 20,000 people. There was being in number 8 school. Like you didn't get that.
Nah.
And it's a shame because
you
know what?
It changes
this should
so much.
Be taught by every football coach for motivation of going, look what this town was built on.
Yeah.
Well, I think Pete using it, what was interesting, and I think I told you this before, is that the Garfield High School Drama Club put this on as the school play last year and involved the football team. And I think they learned a lot about their history, and I think they're going into the season with some of this as motivation.
Yeah.
That would be awesome.
And
Pete, we're going to talk tomorrow.
When is it? Talk to Pete.
Ask Pete about playing, how he felt playing.
I will.
Yeah.
And he was also wearing Walter Young's varsity. He
wore
Walter
jersey.
Young's.
Who played Benny Babu?
It was a Polish kid actually, because there was a kind of a second wave of Polish immigration in Garfield. So it was a Polish American kid who was really good and who spoke Polish very well, and it was kind of cool.
The thing I think is so fascinating is, and again, the past couple of years where it was, and they actually just mentioned it with the football opening last weekend. Well, Don Bosco took their team, and Don Bosco went to De La Salle, and they beat that team and became national. I mean, really, it put Jersey football on the map. But really, Garfield did this in 1939.
Yeah.
It's really the same thing. They had a team, played the best team in another state, beat them, wasn't technically national champs.
Yeah.
So it's really, when people are saying, well, look what Bosco did. I mean, really, Garfield did this.
Sure.
Way back when.
And Garfield
without recruiting.
There you go. There you go. There's your word.
You took it out of my mouth. But I will tell you this.
Although Babula was from Clifton, I will say that.
There you go.
We got to take this, start tomorrow, and get it out there. That's what I want.
Absolutely.
Get it out there and go, you know what? Get some pride. Get the history and expand on it. And try to do the,
Absolutely.
Why not?
Yeah. Well,
Why not?
hey, look, I'm not. Like, I think it's a good book. Obviously, I wrote the thing.
Great book.
And I spent,
Great book.
I spent 4 years writing it. But I think it's really worthwhile. If you grew up in Garfield, you'll really get a lot.
When I read it, once I got to the games, I was just like you're saying. What's the next thing?
Yeah,
I want to. What happened next?
Right.
You're like, oh, the Pasake's next. How did they beat them? Who's next? You just get into it.
And
You're
the
like you're saying,
rivalries.
it's like a season. Like what's going to happen?
Yeah, it's a new season. It's
a new
almost like experience a whole new season. And I guess the rivalries were amazing. The Garfield Passaic rivalry. I detail some of the fights that were going on before the games, where they were rumbling and everything else. And
I'm going to ask you both of you guys a question.
Well,
I'm going to ask both of you guys a question. I'm going to ask him first. Do you ever think you'll see anything rivalry like that again?
What rivalry?
Garfield. I'll even give Garfield Lodi, where I'm saying close to 10,000 people,
no.
18,000 people.
No.
There's just too much other stuff going on with the college football and all that stuff.
There's not, you know what it is? One, parents first, family second, other high school players that don't play the sport, they're not interested enough to go to the game, physically to be there.
So you're pretty much saying, like, back then, if you were in Garfield High School, you're going to that game on the Saturday.
If you lived in Garfield, you were going.
You're going to that game.
Now,
and what you're saying, it's not like
now it's okay. My son's playing. Okay, let's go to the game. They're not bringing. They're not bringing their sister, their brother, their cousin.
Yeah.
It's not an event.
Right.
It's not an event.
It wasn't an event.
And it used to be an event.
Right. Even
the playoffs now.
Oh yeah,
they're not events.
No.
And when I grew up,
and you have so many.
I grew up in the '60s. Garfield was still good in the '60s and '65 with the Roughneck team and everything.
Yeah.
I was 65. I was 11. I went to all the games. They had buses from the high school. To take kids to all the games, and they were still well attended. I mean, the Clifton Garfield game on Thanksgiving always drew like 10, 11 people.
But then what happened? You don't play Clifton anymore.
I know.
I know. And you know what? Life changes.
Really, what's really the rivalry now? Garfield Lodi.
Garfield Lodi.
Is really Garfield Rutherford? That's not a rivalry. Glen Rock.
Well, once the PVC dissolved.
Yeah.
That's the other thing, because there was Garfield was rivals with PVC with East Patterson.
Yeah.
With Clifton, obviously, with Passaic, with East Rutherford,
Bloomfield.
But those
these
schools
were
got
old
bigger.
rivalries.
They got bigger. Now, not football-wise, but student-wise. So they go into a different group.
But I think, again, from coaching and, like, just seeing it, like, even last year, sectional final was Lyndhurst, Rutherford, where it's, you know what? It's right down the street. That's a sectional final.
Yeah.
When it's like Rutherford and, whoever they play from, like, miles away.
But that's the thing is, they don't base anything on history anymore. There's no more emotion in it. So
no.
You gotta. It is what it is. It's the coach, the athletic director, to get the students to get them interested in it. And you know what?
But it's hard, like you said. You're going to get other people
on.
that's just going to be like, I could care less what's going on in that
Let me
football
ask
game.
you, 93?
Yep.
93.
Both
93.
teams,
Yep.
Yep.
Did you know about Benny Babul? And what do you know
Absolutely.
about this team?
That they were national champs.
Champions. You gotta
I know
remember,
kicked the field goal.
I had Dole, so he told me a bunch of
Okay,
stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm gonna be honest. I thought it was always involved with a drop kick. I mean, that's
Well,
what
that's
I kind
because-
of remember.
That's because when we
No, I'm serious,
No,
but that's
I'll
what
tell
I
you
kind
why.
of remember
That's
being
why I asked
told.
before. You know why? Because when we were in Boilermakers, when we were younger,
Yeah.
one of our coaches would do the drop kick. I don't remember who it was all the time, and it was like that's what they Benny Babula did, but
Yeah.
it wasn't correct.
But I did
Right.
remember on
A
you know
lot of people did think it was a
the
drop.
19.
Yes.
I mean, I remember the football. You know what I'm trying to say? Like that they
Absolutely.
were
That's
national
what- so
champs.
there was some
of
sort
course.
of connection.
Absolutely.
Well, that,
But nothing
that-
like
well,
nothing
that
in the
ended up being-
background of
that ended up
anything
being
like that.
lost because it I think in the 2000s, 2010, I think all that ended up being lost. So I'm glad I was able to bring
Well,
it back.
here's the
Yeah,
problem.
absolutely.
The problem now is nobody, and it's just a different generation. Now, I'm not being negative towards it. The history of anything doesn't matter
Well, that's
right
true.
now.
That is
The
true.
history of anything, it's my opinion right now. Forget about what happened in the past. Nobody learns from mistakes in the past.
Yeah.
And they don't appreciate the past.
But you know what? You get the players though who's playing. Those are the ones.
You got to
know,
get them focused.
But you got to get that, like you're saying. I think Pete's going to do it. Listen, Pete, and again, I've known Pete. I coached Pete when he was 10 years old in Little League. So I know Pete. He's anxious. I mean, he wants to do the show.
Yeah.
He's anxious, and I think Pete's going to,
You know what?
give those kids that.
I would
do.
say getting the video on this on YouTube and showing this.
Jeff Stewart saying Miami lies about the water. We brought our own drinking water for no reason.
But the thing is, I think that if you get the focus and you can get them to focus on listening to the speech you're going to do about this, it's a great motivation. The problem is the focus, they have to be all in on that. And it's very tough to get any teenager in on that.
Well, I will tell you this. I think the play brought a lot of kids together at Garfield from different. I mean, you had the drama club, you had the band, you had the cheerleaders, you had the football players.
Kurt's a leader
And-
at drama
and-
club.
And
I was National Honor Society. I can
There
tell
you
you
go.
that.
I was American. I formed a rival group, but that's another story.
Yeah.
But I was told that they were having a problem with school spirit and getting and kind of this play brought
Brought a
everybody
little bit.
together
Good.
and really improved the situation.
But
And
here's the thing.
this is also being used in the classroom
That's
Here's the
awesome.
thing.
this year in one of the advanced courses.
Oh,
And
see, that's great.
Here's the thing. There's always a next step, and it's the follow through of certain individuals. I don't know who right now. I'm not trying to say names, but that's the thing. We always get incited to a level. Somebody's got to get us to the next level. Where's that going to happen? Maybe we can do stuff on our show and get people involved, and I would love it, and we'll see what happens. But I think this was phenomenal. I mean,
Absolutely.
I saw. Did ESPN do something on this? Because I saw
I was
something.
on
and
Jeremy.
can't-
I was on Jeremy Schaff's podcast.
That's what I saw.
So that's what it was. Yeah.
That's what it was.
I was on Michael K. Jeremy. I've
So
been out
tell us
there.
before.
I was on Chris Russo.
Besides this,
Yeah.
what else have you done with the Daily News? Like you said, you wrote for them. What else?
Well, I started writing my newspaper career started in 1974 at the Passaic Herald News while I was still going to Montclair State. I ended up starting out. First full-time job was covering the Cosmos of the
Yes,
NASL.
Pele.
Yep.
Pele,
Pele.
Beckenbauer, Canalia.
We only know
those guys.
Pele. But
And then covered the Giants through their 2 Super Bowls under Parcells.
now
Ended up at the
so
Post.
you talked to them in the locker room, and
Oh yeah, I was a beat writer. I was a
Nice.
beat writer
Okay.
for the.
you gotta remember that's like huge to us.
In fact,
because
Parcells,
Absolutely.
kids.
Yeah.
We were
Parcells,
kids.
Wait,
Parcells had a little blurb there.
Wait a
about it.
minute. Did you cover Super Bowl 21
Yeah.
when the Giants beat Denver?
Don't.
Yeah.
I'm leaving.
Let's not
I'm leaving. I'm leaving.
Get him off.
I'm leaving.
That was,
I was in Pasadena. I was.
that was one of our worst days.
You know Denver was up halftime that
I
game.
know. I know.
Missed field goals.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, but we didn't have any defense.
No.
I also covered. Their loss to the Redskins.
Oh,
No,
that was even worse.
Doug
Here's-
Williams.
Even worse.
Now,
Oh,
I'm getting away from Garfield now, but
10-0.
Well, Dan Reeves, of course, who I loved, ended up being the coach of the Giants, and I covered him for a little bit. He was
Yeah.
a great guy. and he was the coach of the Giants when I was coaching Troy East's Little League team. We got to the state finals, and Dan knew that we were at the state finals because they had taken off, and they were putting out the clips every day of our games, right? And we ended up getting to the finals but losing. And I got back, and Dan said, well, he says, you guys made a really good run. And I said, I know, Dan, but I just can't win the big one.
Yeah, that's it. Like that.
Talking about the Giants, were you there for the Fossil era?
I was, yeah.
Why has he never got another head coaching job?
You really, well, there's some
I heard
stories
rumors.
behind it.
I know that.
There are rumors.
A friend of mine used to work for the Giants,
Yeah.
and he would never tell me the rumor. Come on.
He does radio
Listen,
now,
you
doesn't
did
he?
Bordello.
Or he did road.
I did the Bordello.
He
You
did
did a Bordello.
First of all, I really respect Jim. I think he was
Everybody
a good coach
does.
and a very nice guy. But apparently, he really irritated Wellington Mara because of his womanizing. And he had a number of affairs while he was a coach. And apparently, man, well, anyway.
You did a Bordello. No, high school kids.
I don't think anyone's picking this up. But
we'll put it out there.
There was one affair with someone at Pace that really, not Pace, at Albany, SUNY Albany, that got
training camp?
And I think they were training camp, and they kind of blackballed them.
So what was when was your last year doing the Daily News stuff, like the reporting?
Oh, well, I left the Giants beat, but I covered the NFL until I left in 2015. And in fact, did you go out with Peyton as a Super Bowl winner in 2015? Was that your last year? Yeah.
So
Denver, Carolina. You went out a winner like Peyton.
Of course, because of Vaughn, but okay.
Yeah.
Because of Pete.
But I was covering the league instead of the team, and I'm still doing the picks for the Daily News. If you go,
really?
Yeah.
Okay.
If you go in the Friday Daily News, I'll have my NFL.
Oh, we're gonna get some picks right now.
on.
We're gonna get some picks right now.
Come on. Let's do it.
So we got like 5 minutes.
Okay.
So I want to do this. Let's do this, Briggsy. We've made our predictions. Give me your Super Bowl prediction.
Oh,
right
you're
now.
talking about the season or the week?
Well, season right now.
With him, he
Season-
just jumps around.
Season right now. Give me season right
now.
now.
You have no idea.
All right, give me your best picks for the week. Your top 3 picks for the NFL
I
for
like
the week.
the Ravens. I think the
I
Dolphins.
love the Ravens.
I think that's 5.5, and I think
7.5.
The weather doesn't care. The weather
7.5.
doesn't bother you
the
at all.
Dolphins gonna be the worst team.
No. It's
I mean,
7.5.
It went up.
Really?
FanDuel 7.5 today.
Wow.
Okay, I didn't see that. I got.
I thought 5.5.
I got
too.
5.5 from the paper. Sent me 5.5 today. Well, that's
All right, well,
but anyway.
Listen,
The Ravens are. I mean, the Dolphins are awful.
So you're saying
they got rid of their best receiver, their best linebacker, their best lineman.
They're
I
tanking
don't know
for
what's going
Tua.
on. And
That's
I don't
what
know
they're
what
doing.
he's doing down there, but they trade for Josh Rosen, and then they start.
well, that's because
Fitzpatrick.
Rosen, they found out, needs some time.
Yeah, you need some time.
And
They just tank. They want Tua.
Fitzpatrick
End of
will
story.
get them competitive half the game. Rosen, his confidence would be dead if he has to.
So you got Baltimore.
I like
Who's
the
your
Ravens.
next two?
I like the Ravens.
Stay here, 7.5.
Wow.
That went up. That went up 2 points.
You don't mess with.
I
I
like
know
that.
what I'm talking about.
Yeah, but it went up.
You should have gotten it in early.
Yeah.
There you go.
No, I'll take 7.5.
You want 7.5 for the Dolphins?
Absolutely. Who's going to score for the Dolphins? They have no left tackle.
Oh, so you're saying you're taking Baltimore?
Oh,
Oh,
absolutely.
the Ravens. Oh, that's.
Oh, yeah. But I'm
they're
saying the
going
2
away.
points
Oh.
don't matter to me.
I know, but you still should have gotten the 5.5 early.
Yeah.
I like the Saints over the Texans. I just think it's going to be,
Payback from not payback, but
it's
just
continuation.
from
They didn't
last
get out
year.
there. If
Aggravation.
you've ever been in New Orleans to watch a game, it just swells. That place just.
Well,
goes
here's
nuts.
the thing with what I see in that game is the Texans made a lot of moves lately, but it's not quick enough to beat New Orleans.
What do I think of Texans?
You hate them.
I hate the
J.J.
Texans.
Watt will be hurt.
Oh,
within
yeah,
game
absolutely.
6.
Yeah.
He'll be hurt. But I don't want my Hopkins is a great receiver.
Well, Hopkins, but they have.
But
they have a shutdown corner,
Right.
And they have nobody behind Hopkins.
No.
Yep.
No, that's exactly.
And he's not going to be able
Stills
to.
No
isn't
running
gonna-
game.
Stills will not be the second option.
Right, and he's not going to be able to match. He's not going to be able to match.
Breeze.
touchdowns
No,
with
no,
Breeze.
no.
So it's
No.
that game will
I
get out
love
of hand.
that game. And the
And the
second,
last one?
I actually, as underdog, I like Tennessee with 5.5 from the Browns. I think the Browns are overhyped,
I got a stat for you.
and I think
Don't say that to him because he's. I like
Browns.
Cleveland this year.
I
I
was
hate
a
the
Browns fan
Browns.
when I was a kid.
Let me tell you something. The Browns have lost. I saw it today, and I want to 14 straight openers. I think it was. And you know what? They're going to implode after.
They'll win that game, but the 5.5's a lot.
I don't like
points.
the. I like the.
They'll win
I
that
like
game.
the points. It might be a field goal.
Yeah, but I think they'll win that
Here's my problem
game.
with Tennessee. I like the Browns at home, and I'm going to be. You know I don't like the Browns, right?
Yes.
I don't like Mariota. I don't like the coach.
You've got Tannehill in there.
Yeah, you might get Tannehill.
Which
You're
is
right.
even worse. So I think they cover.
He just made my night by saying he does the weekly picks. We're
I
gonna
think-
find it. What
I think they
Thursdays?
cover.
Fridays.
Fridays?
I think Cleveland wins and covers that spread. 5.5.
Yeah, you might be right.
5. Excuse me.
Couple
I just
things.
don't like
Is it
Tennessee.
5 now?
It's 5 now.
Oh, jeez.
Couple things. Danielle Brewer is saying that her uncle is in this book. I'm
Yeah,
trying to get a
nice.
name.
What's her name?
I'm going to try to get the name. Jeff Stewart saying, get Hank a beer. This could get good. I guess when we start
it's
doing
good.
picks. John Beelan saying, Will Fuller on the field. Watson has one more to put. He's a game changer. I don't like Houston. I don't like. I think New Orleans.
Watson's a game changer,
but I think New Orleans.
But you can't change games against Breeze
No.
if he's coming.
No.
in.
And you know what? New Orleans
If
is
they're
coming in.
playing their division,
Yeah.
they win.
Yeah.
And the
Not in New Orleans.
No,
Breeze is coming out.
not in New Orleans on opening night.
Right, Monday
after
night.
What happened
After what
last
happened.
No
night.
way.
No.
We've been talking about that
All that's
the
it.
time.
Whoever that's a sacrificial
Bad-
lamb.
it's a
Whoever's
bad spot.
going to New
The
Orleans.
other bad spot is Cincinnati at Seattle.
Yes.
That's another
You know
bad
what?
spot.
Yes.
Listen, you give me that quarterback anywhere. I don't.
There with
He could be
in
playing
that
here.
stadium.
Forget it. We don't like Cincinnati. First of all, they finally fired.
Now I'm going to give
Their
you guys
coach.
a game, and I want both your reactions. I love the Jets this week. I do. I do.
I hate to love the Jets.
Okay, let me ask you a question. Kurt,
I don't trust.
I do.
I never trust the Jets.
Kurt, if you say you like the Jets, what's my reaction?
You like Josh Allen.
I love Josh Allen.
I do love Josh Allen.
Love Josh Allen.
I think they're very similar
And
teams.
the Jets' defensive backfield is horrendous. So, Josh Allen will run for 100, pass for 150,
So you're saying
180.
Buffalo wins?
I think that's
Yes.
I think that's a game you stay away from.
You stay away from that
Betting
one?
wise, stay away from it.
Yeah.
If I have to pick,
Couple things. Kenny Douglas saying he had a teacher who played against Benny Babula. He told us stories of him carrying whole teams.
he did.
So,
Please.
Yeah.
how about Denver Raiders?
I like the Broncos.
Yeah, me too.
I think Broncos is a sleeper team this year.
I don't think they're a sleeper
That's
team.
what I
I
like.
think they're 500, a little above.
I think.
But I
they're-
think
He said
that's the
10-6.
I think they could be a playoff team.
I do too.
Yeah.
I do too.
I think Flacco's got a lot left, and I like Fancho.
John Beelan, we're going to be back in
I
a
don't
second,
like
but John
him.
Beelan's coming right at you.
Go ahead.
How can you love Josh Allen? What has he done? That's
He's had the most. How many? Really?
Well, I had a crappy team last year.
Right. And he
Well,
had
let me
how
ask
many
you this, because
rushing
we
yards?
argue with this every week.
Yeah.
He said last year if he had the number one pick, he's taking Josh Allen over Baker Mayfield
Yes.
or Sam Darnold.
Yeah.
I'm taking Baker
Over those
Mayfield.
two.
I will tell you this. I think that was just that's a crapshoot.
Those three?
The three of them last week.
You think it's just-
And I still don't know who's going to end up on top.
Could be
Now,
any of those.
here's
I think Mayfield may regress this
Let
year.
me give you my reasoning, because you don't listen to me.
I never listen to him, but sometimes I do.
At USC, Donald threw a lot of interceptions,
Right.
a lot of awkward throws, bad reads. That's why I have a negative on him. Baker Mayfield, to me, his attitude is going to get him in trouble. He throws a lot of balls into coverage that is going to get him picked off or not.
But so has a
Can I
lot
stop?
of great
So you don't let me
quarterbacks.
finish.
So has a
You
lot
don't
of
let me
great
finish.
quarterbacks in football
Let me
history.
finish. We're going back to 3. That's what I'm talking about. Allen is going to run. He's going to get yardage, and he's going to make, I think, the better decision over the other two. I think one's a chucker, Sam Darnold. The other one is I can put it anywhere, and it's going to hurt him.
But here's the thing: look at through the draft process. Josh Allen's he couldn't hit targets. So when you're saying he's accurate, his accuracy was very. That's what
No,
made him drop.
But he's going to run.
Where Baker
gonna
is
get
on the
his
money.
yards.
Baker is a.
Listen.
I like Mayfield's intangibles.
That's why I
Yeah,
think that's
I think
why
he's a winner.
I think he is too.
So.
I compare my comparison with him is like a Brett Favre, like that
Yeah, he's a
gunslinger,
Yeah.
chucker, but
which
leader.
is
Like
fine.
he's got that leadership
Yeah,
where. See, Josh Allen couldn't go to a one-win Cleveland team or whatever they
Brett
want
Favre was
and
never.
say,
Well,
Baker's give me the team. I'll
Brett
take
Favre
this
was
challenge.
never cocky. Brett Favre earned as a backup. He didn't come out of Mississippi.
It's a different era, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, but he didn't come out as a.
Nobody was cocky back then.
Oh, Elway was.
Yeah,
I ain't playing for you.
He wasn't big
Next.
in Mayfield.
Wasn't Ernie Accorsi the Colt?
Yes, he
Ernie
was.
Accorsi was the GM on the
Yes, he was.
on the
Brownies, the drive.
The-
Yeah, he was.
No, he
no,
was
wasn't he the Colts?
He
And he quit because they wanted to trade Elway?
Yes.
Yes,
I think he
yes.
was the GM,
yeah,
right?
Definitely,
Oh,
definitely.
yeah,
Then he
yeah,
went to Cleveland, and he was the Browns GM
Yeah.
when Elway had the drive.
Right. Oh, he was. So he
Yeah.
really he
Where
couldn't
he
get
comes
away from
from.
Elway.
Couldn't get away from
He
Elway.
couldn't get away from Elway.
Yeah, no.
So last thing, Super Bowl prediction.
Saints with the Eagles possibility, and I'll go with Chiefs with the Patriots always there. If the Patriots end up with home field advantage,
Right.
That's what it is.
No one, you will not beat New England in New England
England.
for an
No.
AFC Championship game. But you put them on the road, totally
Yeah.
different
All right.
team.
I'm going to say this. I believe Kansas City, and I believe New England at home. I think Kansas City, because of McCoy, could beat New England in New England.
Sneaky pickup.
Sneaky pickup. I think it's going to be enough because what was they going to do? Listen, they're running back by committee, but Michelle will be their guy. But I'm not sure by the end of the season where Gordon, Thomas.
You think
and
Gronk
Allen's
comes
gonna
back?
be.
no, but I think New England's defense is much better than
People think.
They're always.
It's going to be
they got the
really,
greatest
Well, they
coach
got
of all time.
Belichick,
it's going to be
and
really
they got
That's
Belichick.
what
It's better. Belichick's always had to do something with smoke and mirrors. He
Sure.
doesn't. He's got
Yeah.
some talent this year.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I just think that with McCoy, it's going to open up a little more here and there. Kelsey's going to be.
like said, Andy Reid knows him.
Kelsey's going to be.
Wanna put him on the
Here's
spot?
my problem.
Want to put him on the
Andy
spot?
Reid is my problem.
No, you want to put him on? Yeah.
Why is Andy Reid your problem?
Because he can't win the big one, and he never has. I think he chokes in the big spot. My opinion. That's it.
Well, Donovan McNabb showed.
Let's put him on the big
You know
spot. Put him on the
Start
spot.
throwing up.
The
Greatest quarterback of all time.
All right. I'm starting. I've always thought Montana was the greatest quarterback of all time. I'm starting to think that it depends. How much longer is Brady going to go? If he continues to win Super Bowls, he's the greatest quarterback of all time. The other guy who doesn't get his due is Otto Graham, because all that guy did was win.
Yep.
And then the other guy's Unitas. So those are my top four.
And I'm going to ask him one more question. My favorite question of all time.
And of course, you have to qualify that by the era in which they played.
Sure.
Of course.
If-
It's
if-
so
if
different.
Brady played when Unitas played and was knocked around as much as
Oh,
Unitas
no.
is.
He's not.
But
He's
I will
nowhere
tell you
near.
this.
He's
and
nowhere
I'm going
near
to make
that.
an argument, and I bust his chops. I think Brady is. But I will tell you this. For what Elway did, and putting his teams on his back for those Super Bowls he lost, with no defense, no running game, he's there with Montana. And just my opinion. But he had nothing. He had Dan Reeves, and they had nothing under him. Sammy Winder is not your top back.
Right.
Um,
Mark Jackson,
Mark
Three
Jackson,
Amigos,
and
those
their
guys
defense
was
had
horrendous.
one guy.
They were horrendous.
One guy.
They were horrendous.
So, but when he got the players back to back at a 30, whatever, 8-year-old.
And don't get me wrong, I'll always say Brady is up there. But my argument with him all the time is I believe that New England is a system. What would you say
Well,
about
they say that about Montana, but I always fought that
Seaford
against
system.
Montana. It was the Walsh, George Walsh,
Bill
Walsh.
Walsh
system.
and Seaford,
Bill
yeah.
Walsh system.
Here's the thing.
But I watched Montana up close, and the guy was the most accurate passer I've ever seen, and he saw a field like it was.
What is the
Never
greatest
lost a
Mon-
Super Bowl?
He could go to his third or fourth option.
Like nothing. Yeah.
What's the greatest Montana story ever? You'll know this.
What's that?
in the Super Bowl.
Oh, and he said about John Candy. John Candy's in the
Calm,
stands. Yeah.
cool, collected.
Cool
Look,
Joe.
everybody's John Candy.
Cool.
Really?
No, I mean the guy was
So,
absolutely,
I don't
absolutely
think,
amazing.
I really believe there's a razor's edge between Unitas, Brady, Montana, and Elway. See, he's a Manning guy.
You like Peyton?
He's a Manning
I do.
guy. And
I
believe he's the greatest field general
who?
of
Peyton?
of leading his team, but the intangible for me he didn't have. That's it. And I'm not saying I'm right, just my opinion.
I don't know.
I hate picking a best guy. I really.
It's hard.
I mean,
it really is
because-
hard.
because
That's
they've
what
all
sports
got
all
things,
about.
But they've all got. But is there one best guy? You know, you're
Right.
gonna have a best guy. I'm gonna have a best guy. You're
Right.
gonna have a
Yeah,
best
but that's why you argue.
Yeah.
Just like basketball, who's the best guy?
Michael Jordan.
guy.
Right.
Jordan.
I
don't
believe
think-
that
I don't
too.
think there's actually.
We all agree on that one. So there's no disagreement on that.
It's funny. Hockey, who's the best guy? Gretzky. Jordan, right?
Yes.
Baseball. Ruth,
That's so hard.
Ruth
I mean,
to me.
baseball's so hard.
Ruth to me. Because of what he did at the time. Now, he wasn't playing against certain players. I get that.
Yeah, Ruth.
But
Best hitter of all time, Ted Williams. No
Ted
question.
Williams. But maybe the best overall player of all time is Mickey Mantle or Willie Mays. To
Yeah.
me, in all my era, is Ken Griffey Jr.
But what did he ever win?
What I'm talking about winning.
And you're saying just strictly.
He was phenomenal growing up. I think.
We can debate this forever. You know,
But
you can debate
football,
football. You can
my
debate
point is,
forever.
my point is, look how
Football's
how
different.
difficult.
It is.
Football.
It is.
That's
But
my
you know,
point.
it's what he said too. Like errors are so different.
No, but
Like
that's my
Brady
point.
now,
It's hard to
you know,
debate.
you touch Brady, you touch any quarterback,
Yes.
15 yards. Back then, you're getting
Yeah.
killed.
But that's my point is, I brought up.
I mean, look at that
sports
Giant. Look at that Giant game. What was it when they beat up on Montana? They were destroying him
Oh,
in that
yeah.
playoff game.
because Leonard Marshall killed him.
Yeah, like they do that now. Forget about it.
Jim
But
Bird.
that's Jim Bird. Oh. But that's my point is.
I did the Jim Bird book. You know.
Did
You
you
did?
really?
Yeah, after the '86 Super Bowl.
I don't want to read
Hard
that one.
nose.
I don't want to read that one.
I
Is there a
don't
lot
know.
about the '86 Super Bowl?
It's funny. He's a
Ah.
piece of work.
We got to go back to that.
It's
You know, I'm
hilarious.
going to ask.
Don't
I
read,
won't-
don't read. Don't read the last chapter.
I won't. I'm going to say this as a Bronco fan.
I ain't read that.
Let's see if Briggs felt like this.
What?
Throughout my life as a Bronco fan, that would always bother me. Like 86 and 87 and 89. Like I don't.
No.
But then once we got that Super Bowl in 97,
Yeah,
it was like,
It's like the Red
who
Sox.
cares?
It's like the Red
Who
Sox.
cares?
They finally
I-
That doesn't even affect
No,
me now.
Not
Just
at
like
all.
Super Bowl 48,
No,
the Seattle game, we didn't even play
No.
that game.
you're-
Once we
see,
got 50,
back to me.
it wiped them
Back to
clean.
me. That
You agree with that theory
No.
or no?
Because that '86 game.
I do.
That's it.
I do, except in the case of the Rangers,
Well, yeah, that's the long.
because in 1990.
How about the case of these guys?
Forget they don't win
They're
nothing.
done. They're done. That's a cursed franchise.
That's a
Yeah.
curse face?
You're done.
Yeah.
Uh,
Let me answer you. The '86 game will always bother me because it was local. Because
Nah.
I'm arguing with people on a bus.
Oh, you
On-
mean
well, because it's Giants. Yeah,
Right.
But
So I'll never know. And then I actually believe we should have won 2 of those. So it bothers me.
But
The
look at
Seattle
now, I'm
one
glad we lost them
Hold on.
and waited
Stop.
to
The
97
Seattle,
and
the
98.
Seattle one
Outcoached. From the
was
get-go.
ridiculous.
From the get-go.
We were in the city, in the freezing cold,
Seattle
doing all the NFL stuff, having fun. We were on Fox News, right, Kurt?
We were on Fox News.
Channel 5.
We went to the
'Cause
Times Square.
Right, and they interviewed us. He was on. What bothered me the most is after they lost, they got crushed.
Yeah.
Fox comes out and goes, "We didn't practice. We didn't prepare. We didn't do this." I'm like, because he relied on Peyton
But what
Manning.
did Elway do? Get Kubiak
I told you.
and let's go.
Yeah.
that defense was good.
Oh, that, it
Defense,
was.
Seattle
It
defense
was.
amazing.
And he.
There are few defenses could. Of all the years that I've covered, I covered football starting in what, 81.
86 Giants.
Yeah.
85 Bears.
85 Bears. Ravens.
Ravens,
the year
2000.
the year that Kerry Collins
2000.
was peeing in his
Yep.
pants that year.
2000.
And Seattle.
Seattle.
Yeah.
Those are the great defenses.
But the one thing, and this is why, and I'm not saying this as a homer
but you
Denver
know,
fan.
let me just. they took the game over at the line of scrimmage.
Oh, absolutely.
Play
When,
one.
when the other team came to the line of scrimmage, they had them beat.
Absolutely.
Just by looking
They had
at
no answer. They
That's
had
it.
no answer.
Play one. Safety.
Bad
Done.
snap. But even I remember
Done.
Demarius Thomas running a slant route, and
Yeah.
Earl Thomas just destroying him,
Yeah.
like sending a message. But the one thing to Elway's credit is Elway that year, remember, they broke all the records. Denver with Peyton Manning, 55 touchdowns, all that. But you know what he did? He saw it. He said, "Wait a minute, that defense just smacked us. I want that
Yeah, but
defense."
the
And he
problem is-
created. He went right to a
Yeah,
defensive
but the
team.
problem is he can't do nothing on offense now.
Well, I mean,
He went. His scouts were great defensively, horribly offensively.
so last minute. Anything else you want to say?
Yep, just the book is available on Amazon.com, or it's still in Barnes & Noble in Clifton.
Is it?
And you can go
I'm
get
gonna
it.
go there. I'm
going to be doing a talk at the, it's far to go, but if you want to get to the Jersey City Library on September 19th, I'll be there talking about it.
Okay.
And I might have some other appearances. Just go to hankgola.com, and I have all my
And we'll
appearances
post that
there.
up again. We'll post
and
that.
we'll try to get together again.
Absolutely.
Later,
Absolutely.
Later.
Absolutely. And I know I'm checking out the picks on Friday.
Yeah.
Oh,
I'm telling you that.
Yeah.
I'm checking
You'll
out the
be on,
picks
you're
on
right.
Friday.
And tell Pete tomorrow that I'm behind the team, and I'll
Absolutely.
try to get to a couple of games this year.
Absolutely. What we're actually trying to do is we're going to talk to him. We want to do
No,
it'd be perfect to come on.
no.
No. It'd be perfect for him to come on. We want to do like a college game day thing where
At
we're
Garfield.
at the Garfield game, and we want to get
And you would be
have you
perfect
come
for
on. You're
picks.
perfect to come on.
Yeah.
Picks. You
Hey,
come
we're
on, talk
talking-
your story. I mean,
Okay.
that's what we
Yeah,
want to do.
yeah, that's what we're
So
trying to do.
that's what we're trying to do.
Sounds
Thank
cool.
you so much for
All right,
coming
thanks for
on.
having me on. It was a good
Thank
time.
you. It was
I
great.
appreciate
hope
it.
so. Cool.
We will
Why don't
be. We're gonna be back. We're
10
gonna
minutes.
10 minutes. We got some stuff, fantasy stuff. We're gonna do. We got John's gonna come on.
We got a lot of
All right, so we're gonna
sisters
take 10
coming on.
minutes. This is coming on, so we're gonna do a quick little show. I gotta charge the laptop. We'll be back in 10.
All right. Yeah, 10 for me, so 20. Yeah, I'm gonna go to